Hello, this is Rebecca Freedom, and this is episode number 65 of Heard Not Seen, produced by John Beethan. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast if it hits you in that sweet, sweet spot. Also, we'll have show notes for you to plug into and read at the end of the podcast so you can really dive deeper into everything that I'm talking about, because let's be honest, it's sheer genius. How many of you have had a dream? And not just like any dream, but that gnawing calling, that thing that just like pulls at you and maybe you say, no, that's not how, I can't be an artist. Artists don't make money, or I can't really, handle the stress of being this highbrow person or whatever it is. The realization of that dream can often, again, feel frustrating. And we talked about that in the last podcast in 64 about harnessing your desire, about the frustration between the gap, between the calling and the realization. So the subtitle today is Manifestation in Action, because we're going to talk about the essence of that and how my Love and Freedom Tour came to be. This is a really palpable and exciting.
Are we going back to the 60s?
We might as well come together right now over me. Yeah, I think so. I got juju eyeballs.
Okay.
Yep. So the Love and Freedom Tour is something that essentially has been 5 years in the making, because the bullet points are, I graduated with my master's in counseling in 2011. I got a degree in transpersonal counseling from Naropa University, which is a Buddhist-founded school with an emphasis on mindfulness training. And out of school, I took a 3-month road trip around the United States, up into Canada, and I missed Georgia, Louisiana, and Florida. I did not hit those states on the tour. The southern states kind of got left out, which will play into today's story a little bit more, incredibly so. And as I explored the states, I was like, America is truly amazing. The South has some gorgeous places, and just got a feel of what it was like to be on the road by myself in my truck, exploring. And sometimes I was completely blissed out. Just, like Montana felt like a good lover. Driving through it, I was like, oh my God's country. God's country. The rivers and the sunsets and the open sky, just the gorgeousness. And there were other times that I was like, this sucks. I'm so worn out from driving. I'm road weary, rode hard and put away wet, road weary. And I ended up totaling my truck on the road and it was just this crazy, crazy road trip where you think, oh, nothing bad can happen. And in some ways it didn't, because my uncle ended up buying the salvage and so on and so on. So I have a 3-month experience on the road under my belt. And after the road trip came to an end, I was going to move to Texas for a boy, like a man, boyish man, whatever, hybrid. And that we had been talking for 2 years. I got to Texas. I said, listen, my truck is wrecked. I don't have a job. I have savings. I need a place to live, but I want to be here to be close to you. And he says, good to know. After it was funny at the time. It wasn't funny. So I reacted to his reaction the only way a sane person would. We went to a La Quinta and had sex. And then I had to take the Plan B pill the next day because I was tipsy and clearly making bright decisions. So that was a shit show. Ended up moving back to Colorado, got a job in a residential rehab for teenagers with drug problems called Arapahoe House. And I got a whole whopping $13 an hour out of grad school. Woohoo. But with benefits, kind of. But man, I got to tell you, working in residential rehab makes you want to do drugs. You're just like, listen, kids, can you just tell me where the meth is? Where can I get that? Because you have people running away from the unit and just not cooperative, not happy to be there. There's a lot of power struggles, mostly amongst the staff. So I worked there until I got fired. For various reasons, because of the way that I dressed, which is, live and learn on that one, because I definitely sometimes push the edges of fashion in places I should just be wearing, a burqa. Okay. Yeah. Note to self, wear khakis and a t-shirt anytime when working in an addictions facility. Don't try to be expressive or be yourself. Wrong move. Bad, Rebecca. So I worked there until I got fired, but while working there, I took people to AA meetings and NA meetings, the 12-step meetings. So there's this sort of alchemy happening in my life at this time around 2012, where I am living by myself and I'm going to this residential facility, going to the 12-step meetings, having just come off of this road trip, and 6 months going by. And then it happened. I'm standing in my living room and I'm thinking, why isn't there a 12-step program for people going through breakups? And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to write it. And I've been writing since I was like 19 years old. So at that point I was like around 33. And I was like, cool, I'm going to write it. And I did. I set out to write Breakup Rehab. And the title came to me. And then the subtitle came to me, which was Start Over Stronger, SOS. And so I was like, ooh, double entendre. Yeah, great. And at the time, I still had some inheritance money. My grandma passed away in 2010, and she left me about $67,000. So I used all of that in my travels and in starting my own business. So I write Breakup Rehab. I get fired from Arapahoe House. I start my own counseling business called, I was first going to be Free Spirit Therapy, but someone's like, you're just going to get a girl in yoga pants who won't pay you. So change the name. So I picked a more masculine name, which was Transform Now Counseling. Because why wait? If you can transform now, not later, now. And that, had a modicum of success. I mean, I got clients. And to all of you who are my clients early on, if you ever listen to this, God bless you. God bless you for being the guinea pigs of Transform Now Counseling, where I brought my skills from rehab and from Naropa and melded them together along with my psychic abilities and had my own private practice. Well, naturally, the process of getting the book written happened because I ended up dating somebody for about, his name's Dan, for about 8 months. And it was this wild ride with an artist where he was just going to be Peter Pan and not grow up. And I was like, I want a family. And among other things, we were just out of alignment. But the breakup was one of those devastating breakups that spawns some of your greatest work, the opus, right, of my experiences to date. So the book really matured from this loose sort of gravel into like a paved road, into really a cathartic experience. And I hired my own editor and I hired a design person, and I probably invested $3,000 of my own money into getting this book self-published. I didn't make any of it back, zero. I made maybe $100 back doing this. So a lot of times self-publishing is a labor of love. And as a side note, I now coach people around that because, people are always like, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. I was like, well, do you? Do you? Because if you're really going to write something that's crafted well and not just this verbal dribble on paper, it's a religious process. And I also learned, don't make design decisions while angry at your ex, because the copy of my self-published book, Breakup Rehab, Start Over Stronger, looks like the zombie apocalypse. Okay. It looks like I'm going to stab and kill. And I felt like that at the time. So the editing process took 6 months. The book still got released with errors in it. I probably overspent on certain, like an index on the back. It was just a mess. So long story short, and this is leading up to, after the book was done, I was like, hey, now I'm going to go on tour. And that was roughly 2015. So about 2 years ago, okay, I was like, great, let's start a Kickstarter. Let's see if I can get money up to go on tour. This will be great. Didn't happen. Life went on. And then I got the call to move to California. The pull, again, another pull. Plus, I didn't want to be in the same state as my ex. I was just like, get me out of here. Twist and tons of plot turns there, because I was going to move to California, stay with my cousins in Carlsbad for a month, had no idea where I was coming to. Then I got meningitis, ended up in the ER 3 times, and told them about that. And my cousin's like, well, you can't stay here because we're afraid you'll get our son sick and it's not cool. So I got online and found this place in Ojai where I basically rented this guy's office with a futon in it. And it was like a mausoleum of old National Geographic photography, and just, he was an old photographer and journalist. And it was just like this fun house, I guess you could say. It was just really crazy, but he would only charge me $600 sight unseen. I said, great, I'm coming to Ojai. And it got me out to California. So what I want to plant right now is the seed. And in my book, Letting Go, which is a guide for people going through codependent release, the book Letting Go, it says, one of the art is waiting. What you're asking for this year, you may not be able to pull off for 2 years. That there is divine timing in things, like the skill set and the resources you have available to you right now are only going to be the fertile soil in which that seed is able to be planted and to grow and to then germinate into a fruit. So the Love and Freedom Tour is something that was germinated in 2015. And like, okay, well, I got to move to California. And then incredibly, I have met all the people I'm supposed to meet while here for 2 years. I have this 2.5 year journey of people that just sort of initiated me into Leucadia, into northern San Diego area after I moved from Ojai, a little further south along the coastline. I had just the sort of like Cali girls who initiated me. I lived in this house called Funky Town. It wasn't just a cute name. It had black mold in it, and the people there were a bit funky. So good roommates, crazy time, and just started to acclimate to California life, to coastal life again. Met this girl named Jennifer, who is Don Miguel Ruiz's stepdaughter or daughter through marriage. And Don Miguel Ruiz is obviously the one who wrote the 4 Agreements, and he lives around this area. And Jen and I, again, there's just people that are like rings of a tree. You'll like hang out with them for maybe just like a 3-month period, or they're just not, they're people that sort of like are the angels that come in and out of your life and walk alongside of you, support you how you need to be supported. She was my chiropractor for a while. Just really like this Spitfire person. She loved Asian pop music, just really interesting person. And one day she's like, hey, let's meet in Carlsbad for coffee. And so I said, okay, great. That's a change of scenery. Went up to Carlsbad, met for coffee, started talking about psychedelics and Terrence McKenna. And then I have a certain someone overhearing our conversation and chimes in, none other than...
I'm just sort of curious about what you're talking about.
None other than John Beethan. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, okay, So he invites me, we start this podcast experiment, heard not seen. And really, I had no clue what I was doing.
That's for sure.
Yeah. If you listen to the early podcast, you should. I was just sort of reading old articles that I wrote and giggling. And my aunt was like, "What are you doing? It's just weird. You giggle all the time with the giggling. It doesn't make sense to me." And then I was like loud and angry, which that hasn't changed. Nah. But yeah, so magically...
No, it's been a great journey, actually. It's fun to watch you grow through this.
Yeah. So this, again, right, this little seedling of all these like experiences just like sweeping together and gaining this momentum. And as if by grace, truly, meeting you, starting the podcast. And then in a little town like this, life starts to weave itself together, where you've worked with Jessica Lewebrand, and you can say a little bit about her if you want. Her specialty is like tuning forks and...
I mean, I met her at Eve in a Tuesday. I don't remember what they were calling it at the time.
Inner Temple or Symposium.
Yeah, it was called Inner Temple, put on by Jacqueline Price.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I was with a friend of mine, and my friend, she got real interested and actually did a session with Jess. And then booked a session later. And this person, Tracy, she doesn't usually go back unless it's worth going back to. And she kept going back. And anyway, so then I had Jess on one of the podcasts. Yeah.
So and that's incredible. And so you met her that way. And I met her because I started weaving into the community, and there was this house party at this, and the houses here have different names, like like iPad and the Tree House, and there's these group houses that act like the female temple or whatever that get names, and they're just basically the goddess temple. There's like 5 women or 5 people that rent out a house and then make it sort of a community gathering place. So the Tree House was one of those places, and they were having karaoke night, and I went because I'm kind of, I guess, ballsy, where I'm like, well, I don't know anybody, but I'll just go and meet people. And thank God for my years in Colorado that really helped, introduce me to those types of communities where you just go to the group parties and connect and make friends. And again, something seeded from way in the past, going to the healers jams, where I just met so many amazing healers, and then you continue to be friends with them, seeded me going to this party. At the party, I see Jess. My hands are like drawn to her head. I was like, "Can I play with your hair?" She's like, "Yes." And then I felt led to since I'm psychic, to do a reading for everybody in the room. Did a reading for her, nailed it, made friends with her instantly. So here we are. Okay. Meet her, and we just pepper in and out of each other's lives, touch base. Meet John, the podcast is going. Meet my agent Patrick through my writing an elephant journal, and he represents Breakup Rehab. I get a book deal with New World Library. I go through this year-long process of editing to have the book be released September 12th this year. Now it's on the global market, and I'm realizing how much it takes to get a book to be a bestseller, unless you already have an incredible platform, which I don't yet.
Well, ladies and jellyfish, the takeaway here is show up.
Yes.
But you also showed up with an intention to meet people.
To make that the richness of community, right? To say that wealth is not monetary. It's in the relationships that you form, and that those relationships are little seedlings in your garden, and that you have the ability to prune them, to care for them. And I've been blessed with a loyal heart. Like, I truly, when I meet people that impact me, I love them pretty much instantaneously. Like, I'm like, you are part of my soul family. I love you. Plus, I'm that Italian that's like the mama bear. So all of this comes together, crescendo time, where a day I wake up and I was like, my business isn't doing so well. I need to get on the app Shaper, start meeting people, meet this other guy named Joe Nicolosi. Him and I are talking, and he says something that just landed so profoundly for me. He said, "You know what people live for, Rebecca?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "Love and freedom." Just let that hang there. Love and freedom. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my life's work. I'm here on earth figuring out this confounding thing called partnership, relationship, and my last name is freedom. Because it's so true. What we choose, the choices we make in life, how we construct our life, is the difference between a cage of our own making and freedom. And love can be something that sets us free, and it can also be a prison. So when he said that, I was like, thank you. You just named the tour, the Love and Freedom Tour. And I am setting off to heal broken hearts and restore our connection to magic, truly, to the earth magic, to the remembering of who we are. So magically, I'm sitting here being like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I need a van. I need a van. I need a van. I need a van. And Jessica had decided to live in a van to save from San Diego rent. And then I put stuff on Instagram. Then she reaches out to me after I do a weekend of access consciousness training, which totally shifts your awareness and your perspective and the molecules around you so you can have more of who you truly be. And all of a sudden alignment happens. She goes, you know what? I'm going to Asia. What? When? January through March. Really? Yeah, you can rent my van. What? I now have a van. That was so huge. Now I have the vehicle of which to go on to this tour. And I was like, do I really want to do it with a van? And I was like, yeah, I do, because there's so much else possible there. So the van shows up. Then now people are showing up that are like, guess what? I have connections in Arizona. Well, guess where one of my first stops is? Arizona, Tucson, Taos, Sedona, Phoenix, Scottsdale. I'll be reaching out to all of you to be able to do talks, open mics, give healings. And really, I'm at the point of the tour where it's about booking gigs. And yeah, amazing.
I have an idea for you, Rebecca. Mm-hmm. What you could do is connect with people on Facebook and just say, if you get X amount of people together, mm-hmm. and, if I do an event, it's going to be X amount of dollars. Bless you.
Yep.
Then I'll show up.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But
I know a very successful comedian that's exactly what he did.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, like, if for any of you listening, and basically the tour is going to launch in January. I'm going to head up to Northern California first for the dry run, meet with my agent, kind of start the flyering campaign, reaching out to people, outfit the vehicle. Also, I have a documentary filmmaker that came on board who we're going to be making a documentary out of this called What is Freedom? So I tell this story to inspire you, to say that wherever you are in your journey, if you're feeling frustration, know that that's the light, that you're just getting the signal from the lighthouse of the manifestation that's requiring your action to do exactly what you said, John, is to show up. So my big ask for anybody listening to this in Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, in Arizona, in New Orleans or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and basically the southern states, again, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, and even Southern California. If you're at a place where, if you own an addiction center and you want to have someone come in and give a talk on alternative healing, the possibility of spirituality to help cure addiction, and not just through plant medicine, but through true remembering of who we are beyond this patriarchal bullshit that we've been oppressed by, then I'm happy to come by. Also, if you know someone going through a breakup, or you're going through a breakup, get Breakup Rehab. It's on Amazon right now, and start that process. And I'll be facilitating the 12 steps of Breakup Rehab in something called the Rapid Detox come January, the 4-week Rapid Detox. And that is roughly $1,800 right now. But if you mention Heard Not Seen, then we'll give you some slide and scale stuff. And it's all just coming into formation. So you can participate in the miracle that is the Love and Freedom Tour by reaching out to me directly. And I'm happy to just speak life into your life. This has been Heard Not Seen. This is Rebecca Freedom, and be set free.